So I get it, A-levels are hard, but I'm going to try and help you get the grades that you want and give you all the resources that you could ever need. But before we start this, I do want to say that this video is specifically for A-levels because, you know, A-levels has a specification, there's past paper questions, stuff like that. So these are like specific to A-levels. I do have a video coming out soon on how I study in dental school because, you know, university is very different, but I think the principles from this video can also be broadly applied to other exams that you're taking. So yeah, my framework from learning content begins with first knowing what is going to turn up in your exam. And this is different to just looking at the specification. What you want to do is you want to go through loads of past paper questions, ideally answering questions as well, not just looking through them, but finding what topics and questions come up again and again. And usually they have the same mark scheme, so you can usually like incorporate this into your active recall flashcards. And this is like one of the most important things that you could do because in A-levels they really do like just recycle questions and mark scheme answers, especially for maths and biology and all the subjects that you'll be doing. And even for biology, I know that we had like this one like part of the exam where it's like, okay, you have a 25 mark question essay, and even just by looking through the old past paper questions you can kind of figure out what kind of themes they revolve around and what kind of questions they would be asking you about, and you can, you know, plan essays around this, and then you'd be more adept to doing the actual essay when it comes to the exam because you've done the same format or some similar topics before. So in essence, this is similar to scoping the subject, which I think is very, very important. You need to know what are your priority topics, what topics fall under that, and, you know, for example, like respiration, you want to know what are the subtopics that you will need to learn about. Basically, just having a general understanding of what content you need to learn, and so this will make your whole process so much more efficient. The second thing is obviously learning the content, and I'll teach you a really effective way to do that. And finally, it's just revising the content. Don't do stupid revision. Don't do rereading textbooks. Don't do rewriting textbooks. Don't do rewriting notes. Don't really make notes either. I think the most beneficial way is just to turn them straight into active recall flashcards. And so, you know, on one side you'll have, okay, what is the use of, or like, how is ATP made? And then on the other side you have like bullet points on like, okay, this is how ATP is made or whatever it is. And then that is the best way to learn the content. Even when you're learning something for the first time, I think it's really important, like for example, if you're reading, like you're watching a video or you are reading a textbook or you're even in class, yeah, you wait until the end of the class or like after every paragraph or chapter you close the book and you think, okay, what are the main points from here? How can I summarize this myself? What do I remember? And then you look back and fill in the gaps and then make your active recall questions. And something that is so underlooked is revising a topic is so much more valuable and efficient than learning new content. And I know this is very controversial because at the end of the day, you do need to know a lot of the content that is on the specification and stuff like that. I think you can get away with learning the most important things. And if you think about it, when you're doing your active recall questions, doing them may take you 20 minutes if it's a large topic, less if it's, you know, a smaller topic, up to 5 minutes. And the fact, like obviously everyone knows about the forgetting curve and you can talk about spaced repetition here, but if you, for example, leave your flashcards for 2 months, you're unlikely to remember a lot of it. If, for example, you did it once or twice, yeah, that's maximum 10, 15, 20 minutes, yeah, between those 2 months, you are going to remember it so much better at the end of the 2 months. So revising your content is also really important, but in the same sense, you know, there is a forgetting curve. You don't want to be doing it every single day because you're only learning it by virtue of repetition in the way that it's more efficient to actually just leave some gaps in between, but make sure that they're not too long. But yeah, revising your content by doing practice recall questions. So yeah, I also think that doing practice paper questions is even more important than doing your flashcards because you are putting yourself in the exam's condition. You're putting yourself in the questions that your exam is going to ask you. It's not going to be like, oh, how is ATP made? Or it might be, but you're going to be asked a lot more complex questions like, okay, this person did this trial and, you know, the results were this, and, you know, how does this relate to XYZ, stuff like that. So like, it's a lot longer, the questions, and they're put into a specific like context and stuff like that. So I think it's very, very, very important to do your practice questions. If anything you take from this, do your practice questions. Past paper questions. Do all of the past paper questions. Do all of them going back as far as you can. Obviously focus more on the ones that are more recent because that is going to show you what your exam is more likely to look like. But yeah, do all the questions. if you have the luxury of time and you're not cramming for exam, I think understanding is so key. Obviously, this requires that you start a lot earlier because you're not just going to be cramming information into your brain. Like, understanding things is so much more effective because you're unlikely to be able to route memorize things for a very long period of time, and often you're learning things. A-levels is a 2-year course. You need to remember all the things that you learned at the start as well as the end, especially now that A-levels are done at the end of the 2 years. And yeah, so I think understanding is very important, and that will just make your whole active recall process so much more easier. Watch the videos, do whatever you need to do to understand it. And yeah, making notes is very controversial. Don't fool yourself into thinking that making notes is helpful or it makes sense to you, or whatever. Even if it takes you an hour, even if it takes you only 20 minutes to write your notes, I do not think it's useful. If instead you convert these straight into flashcards, that is so much more useful. When you understand a concept, or when you've just learned about a principle or a chapter or whatever it is, putting them into active recall questions right then and there is so much more beneficial because you have a good understanding of how they all fit together. Making the questions are going to be so much less friction than doing it a week from now when you've forgotten a lot of the key principles, and it's a lot harder for you to do that, and instead just answering questions would be so much more helpful. So yes, make questions, don't make notes, don't reread, don't do any of the dumb useless revision tips. So I'm going to show you my notes over here, and I organize this on Notion. But basically what I do is I have main topics, which are periodontology, orthodontics, all of that stuff. And for you, that might be biology, chemistry, physics, maths. And then within that, I have subtopics. So I'll have all the different topics that come under there. And, one of them for me is dental trauma. So dental trauma is a subcategory, but for me, that's a packet of information. So everything that I would ever need to know about trauma is under this category. Then within there, so if I open that up, it's going to be a series of subheadings as well, and it's also going to have questions under there. My subcategories may be stuff about antibiotics, splints, about avulsion injuries, about luxation injuries and stuff like that. So it kind of just in my head makes more sense because everything's more categorized and I can understand where things would be. And then within that, I would have questions. So each question is a toggle, and you can kind of basically hide the answer and open and close it from there. And I find that so useful. And so basically this is a packet of information, and I'll show you in a second how I put this into a spreadsheet and how I make a system for learning, because I can basically prioritize which packets of information I feel I don't know very well. All content isn't created equal, and I might know some topics really well and they get a green flag from me, and some topics I may be so confused about, I don't know what's going on, I need help, and so those questions are the ones I would be focusing on, especially if I know that they are important subjects. I have a traffic light system to figure out what topics I need to learn first, which ones I'm weakest at, strongest at, all of that stuff, and I'll explain that at this timestamp. But yeah, that's basically how I make notes, and basically how I organize my information. So practice questions. I've already talked about this before, but I think it is so important because at the end of the day, practice questions are going to get you the grades that you want. The great thing about A-levels is that there is a specification and there are past paper questions which literally show you exactly what questions are going to be like. And like I've said before, A-levels, they love to recycle questions. You'll see the same questions come up again and again, similar mark schemes. You can basically learn what you need to know through past paper questions, and I think that is so helpful. Go back as far as you can, but obviously focus on the ones that are more recent because they will be a more true reflection of what your exam is going to be like, and do all of them. Figure out what topics keep coming up, focus on those, put the mark scheme of questions that you don't get right into your active recall questions, and then you'll be revising both of them at the same time. The main thing that it's doing here is filling in the gaps of your knowledge. You're figuring out what you don't know, what you do know, and this is directly relevant to the questions that you're going to get asked in your exam. So my practice paper strategy. If you're running out of time and you're cramming, I would suggest go hard on the past paper questions, because you're not only learning the content, you're also filling in the gaps in your knowledge. Those are, like I said, recyclable questions. They're going to come up in your exam. You will learn the mark scheme. The mark schemes are practically the same bullet points kind of thing. So you'll understand, oh, if a question on nutrification comes up, I know roughly to talk about this. Another thing I'd do is I'd also keep track of my scores. So I'd have an Excel spreadsheet or something, and I'd write the marks that I got. Then fill in the gaps of my knowledge, and I'd figure out where I went wrong, what I need to learn. And then in a few months, I'd redo the paper, and I'd hopefully see some improvement. That's one of the great things about practice paper questions, is that you can see improvement. You can see okay, over a few months I'm improving, which is a really good sign, and I'm getting better grades and stuff like that. So, and that's why I think you should do more practice paper questions. So organization, this is something that you need if you're going to be efficient, if you want to spend less time studying, if you want to have a life outside of studying. This is what you need, because you'll have a system in place. You'll basically be making studying a process of a lot less friction. Even if this process takes you a lot longer than you expected, and even though it takes a lot of time, it will make you so much more efficient in the long run. So first of all, I highly recommend that everyone starts off organizing digitally, because there's so many benefits to it. One, you can obviously type faster than you can write. Two, you can carry it with you everywhere. It can be on your phone, on your laptop. Say you have some extra time at uni or college or whatever, and you don't have your laptop, but you can obviously log onto theirs and you'll find it through cloud access. You'll never lose your notes. You can also have the benefit of basically typing up like a word like mitochondria, and you'll have every single question that you'll ever have made on mitochondria there, or every single note that you've made, or whatever past paper question. And I know that if you have a lot of paper stuff, that you would want to make a binder or something like that, especially if your class gives out so many papers. But what you can do is you can just take a photo of it, and it will like scan up like a PDF, and that would be really helpful. So obviously I've showed you how I have my notes. I have my main topic areas, then I have subcategories, then I have some subcategories, which are basically packets of information. So the second thing I will do is I will have a spreadsheet. So I will have like Google Sheets or something like that, and then on one column I'd have all the different packet areas. So under, for example, orthodontics, I'll have every single packet into that, and then on the other side I'll have date. So every time that I do the active recall questions in that packet of information, I will put the date there, and then I will also color code it. So I'll be like, okay, so I found this medium difficulty, I'm gonna color code it orange. And then I know, like in a week's time, like, okay, I need to redo this one because it's an orange. The green ones, I feel like I can leave for a little bit longer. I'm gonna redo that in 2 weeks. So that's how you know what questions and what topics you need to focus on, because you know this way what are your weaker areas and which ones are your stronger areas. But I'll go more into that in the revision timetable portion of this video. But that's basically my system. So I have my notes and my questions, and I have my spreadsheet of organizing when I'm going to study what needs more help, and I'm also doing past paper questions at the same time. If I was doing A-levels, I'd also have a past paper question spreadsheet. So I'd have one for, I don't know, paper 1 in chemistry, and then I'll have like all the dates of the actual paper. So I know that, okay, this is the October, 2020 paper, and then I will also put my mark there and how hard I found it, if there are any topics that I found like I really need to focus on, and when the next time I take it is, and then and all those informations as well after that. And so that is how I would organize it, because it's like a 3-part system, but it really works. And if you put into the habit of organizing your notes and organizing the things that you come from class and organizing the things that you're learning into active recall questions, it will be so much more easier for you, because revising a topic is not going to take you an hour, it's going to take you 10 minutes, and that's how you're going to save time. So I've gone over study techniques before, but I'm going to go over quickly what is effective and what is not. So obviously we know active recall is very important. The act of retrieving information from your brain is so important. This could be in obviously the form of questions, practice paper questions, but also things like fill in the blanks, or like getting a piece of paper and being like, okay, I'm going to write everything about respiration on this paper. That is so helpful. And I think that is not only filling in the gaps of your knowledge and figuring out where you went wrong and what things you still need to learn, but also it's strengthening those neural connections in your brain. So we know about spaced repetition and the forgetting curve. So I think this is the best way to study. Okay, so I've kind of gone over this before, but rereading, highlighting, rereading, all of that stuff, completely useless. Like, stop doing them now. Like, it's okay if you spent your whole life doing it before this, but you watched this video, so you have no excuse, because now you know the truth, now you know the evidence. You can look up the evidence if you don't believe me. Like, it's there. Like, it's right in front of you. You need to stop doing this. It's so inefficient for you. The second thing is not to cram. Obviously, like, I understand if you have other priorities and stuff, but if you do want to get the grades that you want, you need to start earlier. You need to be putting all these things into place, and obviously with cramming you could get the grades that you want, but it's just less likely. Next thing is to forget about motivation. You don't have to feel like studying to do the studying, and that's really important. And if you're going to get anywhere in life, this is a very important concept to ingrain into your head, because anything that's worthwhile, you're not always going to feel like doing it. Like, I get, like, sometimes you're so like motivated at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're like, yeah, I'm going to study so much, and you start studying and stuff, but like a lot of the time you're not going to feel like studying, and those are the times that are really important to study. So for resources, I have this website where you can download PDFs and books, textbooks, so you don't have to buy them, and you can have them digitally with you all the time. And I know I say like rereading content and stuff like that is not useful, but if you're learning information, like, I think it could be useful in the way that you read a chapter and then you have to like summarize it in your head, and like that is a form of active retrieval and stuff like that. So I think the AQA books, and or like whatever board you're doing, they basically are like the specification like explained, and so in that way I think they are really useful. So like that website to download pretty much every textbook or any book that you want, it's here. I also think past paper questions obviously are another resource that are really, really amazing. I think maths textbooks are also really important because they're going over every single question that you could possibly be asked, and with maths it's so much more practice based, like there's no learning content really involved, it's doing the questions and you know, you learn through them. And a lot of the textbooks have like examples of like how to solve equations and do like formulae and stuff like that. And so yeah, textbooks for maths are really important, and I'll put some up above other ones that I used. And obviously, like I said before, if you're doing AQA, the textbooks for those are really good for biology, chemistry, physics, all of those. I know that they go into too much detail sometimes, but if you're just learning the material, it's only like there's 1 or 2 pages per chapter, and it's a good way to be first introduced into the content. Make It Stick is that book I was talking about earlier, which talks about evidence-based studying and shows you the best techniques to study. And if you're listening to this over summer or something like that and you have some time to spare, get it on Audible. And finally, I also want to thank Ali Abdal's Skillshare course, because I wouldn't know about half of these techniques if it wasn't for him, and he completely revolutionized the way that I study. So yeah, that's really important. If you want to go check that out, you can. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. If you need anything, just comment down below and I'll be there. If you need help with anything else A-level related or getting into dental school, I have so many videos on that on my channel, so check that out and subscribe down below so you don't miss anything. But yeah, I'll see you. Bye.